Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Sofia and today we are going to be talking about my 6 top favorite romance books. Currently, all time, not too sure. I'm pretty novice in reading the whole romance genre because I feel like in middle school I focused more on fantasy. Like kind of Percy Jackson type of a thing where it wasn't just pure romance, it was a lot more plot. Hey, these books are not listed in any particular order. I was going to try to do that, but it was just, I couldn't decide. No, it wasn't happening. If you enjoy this video, please give it a big thumbs up, hit the subscribe button down below, and without further ado, let's start talking about some books. So the first book on my list is Clockwork Angel by Cassandra Clare. It is the first book in the Infernal Devices series, which takes place in the Shadowhunter realm. You've probably heard of the TV show, it's pretty famous. It's also a really famous book. I did not realize how many people have actually read it until I checked the Goodreads, and there are over 700,000 reviews on it. And it has over 4 stars, so you know it's good. I haven't read any of the other Shadowhunter books, but I didn't feel like I needed to because this one's in the sequence of time. It takes place in the 1800s, so it's before anything else has ever happened. So I didn't feel like I was missing out on anything. So this book follows Tessa, who has come to England from New York after receiving a letter from her brother, but when she gets off the ship, she's kidnapped by these 2 evil, scary ladies, and they teach her how to use her powers, but she is rescued by 2 Shadowhunters, and then there are some automaton things happening. People try to kidnap her, so then she has to stay with the Shadowhunters, and there is a love triangle between her, Will Herondale, and his peripatie, which is like his partner in crime, Jem. And these 2 boys, oh my gosh. I usually don't like love triangles that much because I just always feel bad for the person that's not chosen, but they were just, Will is like this hot bad boy type guy, and then Jem is this hot sweet boy, and I just liked both characters so much. And then once you understand why Will is so cold, everything makes sense, and then you're like, oh my gosh. I just was agreeing with every single one of Tessa's choices, which is very rare in love triangles because usually I just get annoyed at the main girl who is deciding between the 2, but I was with her, I agreed with her. Low-key, I'm Team Jem because he is such a sweetheart, but I liked both boys. Both great book boyfriends. Okay, also, every time I read a romance book, the main boy in the book becomes my boyfriend. Like, they are my book boyfriend for the time that I'm reading them, so it's pretty important that I like the boy. There was a lot of good tension between the 3 of them, and there was also a good amount of plot. Honestly, if there was no romance, I still would have been intrigued to find out what happens, and the plot twists were pretty big, and I completely did not expect them. Ed Westwick, I think that's his last name, from Gossip Girl, voiced the first audiobook. He is amazing. He's so talented. He was able to voice Tessa, which is an American girl teenager, so well. I could like hear her speaking when he voiced Will. I heard him speaking, and Jem sounded different, and I just loved his voice. It was so lulling. I think I was spoiled after that because the other 2 books were narrated by somebody else. What's his name? I think his name is like Danielle something. He was also very talented, but how can you beat Ed? Okay, the next book is The Traitor Queen, which is the 2nd book in the Bridge Kingdom duology. I liked the first book. I gave it 4 stars. The 2nd book was amazing. To give a quick synopsis of what the first book is, I don't want to spoil the 2nd book. We follow Lara, who is a princess who has been trained from a very early age to take down their rival kingdom, Ithacana. It just so happens that she is to marry the king of Ithacana, whose name is Arren. As she begins to infiltrate the kingdom, she slowly finds that everything that she has been taught might not necessarily be true, and I gave this book 4 stars just because there were some slow parts. This whole book, I just kind of felt nervous because I was just waiting for Arren to discover her true purpose there and the whole blow up to happen. And it just gave me anxiety. So with the sequel, with the whole, there is a blow up. I don't want to spoil too much, but with that out of the way, I felt like it relieved a lot of pressure that I had. And then it was kind of about the rebuilding of how are we going to move forward from there. And there were still some plot twists that I wasn't expecting. But the second book, I could not put down. The plot, it was plot driven and character driven so equally well. Oh my gosh, like we were in the mountains and it was snowing, and then we were in a castle jail, and then we were barely surviving the desert. It was just crazy action, and the characters, you were seeing them interact and having conflicts and resolving their conflicts and growing as people the whole time while moving around, and it was just so incredibly well done. I don't know if I've ever read a book that fast. Like, I just couldn't. My poor parents. I was just reading this book, well, listening. I listen to books. I was just listening to this book, not having conversations. It was so good. And Laura is a savage. She's a savage. I don't use that word a lot, but she is a savage. She was beating people up, going crazy, saving Arren. Arren was saving her. Lots of good saving moments. And Arren, initially I wasn't a huge fan of him. He just seemed kind of judgy, but I guess that's his role as a king. Like, he's supposed to be judgy, and in the end his suspicions were like low-key right, but still I wasn't a huge fan of him in the beginning, but he really did grow on me, and you saw the way that he was raised influenced how he interacted with her, obviously. I think that's what, well, that goes with most people, but like, you know what I mean? Like, the way that his family interacted with their rival kingdom influenced the way that he reacted with his new wife. Okay, now kind of moving away from the fantasy world for a hot minute. Contemporary romance is a very hard thing to get right because it's almost 100% character driven, and you have to put in a plot. Putting in a plot is really difficult. And I think The Deal by Elle did that. It is a sports hockey romance set in college, which is a very basic, generic storyline. I think I've read at least 3 of those types of books before picking up this one. So I didn't have super high hopes. I was just like, okay, this is another one. I have an extra credit, let me try it out. So this is a hockey romance following Hannah and Garrett. Garrett is the hockey star. Everybody knows him in this school, but he's struggling in some of his classes. His GPA is declining, and he's worried that he's going to be kicked off the team. Hannah has a crush on this football player, but he doesn't really notice her. So, of course, in exchange for Hannah tutoring Garrett, Garrett will help Hannah make this hockey player jealous. And along the way, they fall in love. Very To All the Boys I've Loved Before type of a deal. I love those types of stories. There's so much opportunity for jealousy and good tension. It was friends to lovers, I would say. Hannah didn't really like him in the beginning. He didn't really know who she was in the beginning, so it was, yeah, friends to lovers and lots of good tension. Garrett is also possibly one of the best book boyfriends. He was so caring and funny and sweet, and the banter and chemistry between them. I was literally laughing out loud as I was reading this, and I really liked Hannah too. I liked how she was also smart and funny. Okay, the next contemporary romance is The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. Such a good, slow burn. Oh my gosh. We have Lucy, who is your classic sunshine, sweet girl, friends with everybody in the office. And then we have Joshua, who nobody likes. He's moody, and they are both executive assistants for 2 CEOs who have merged companies. And Lucy and Joshua are competing to be promoted. This one was a definite enemies to lovers, which you could probably tell by the title, and some of the things that they did to each other in the beginning was genuinely really mean. I felt really bad for Lucy in the beginning. The transition between enemies to lovers was very smooth, and I got so many butterflies from this book. Like, the way that Joshua's character grew, and oh my gosh, like, I don't know if I've ever gotten so many butterflies, because all the like cute little moments of tenderness were just, I think maybe because we were so starved for the first part of the book that any little instance where he was showing any sweetness was like, oh my gosh. Also, Joshua's humor was so funny, and then Lucy was such a genuinely good person that it was a very fun read. It's a good feel-good read. Okay, this one I mentioned in my last video. It was very surprising that I liked this as much as I did. I didn't think I would like it, and that is House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas. I know, Sarah J. Maas. I did not like A Court of Thorns and Roses, and I didn't like Throne of Glass. I was very skeptical when I read this book, but I really, really enjoyed it. This is a high fantasy book where we follow Bryce, who is half human, half fairy. She just has low magic ability. She comes home and discovers that her roommate and her roommate's werewolf pack have been slaughtered, murdered. Hunt is an enslaved fallen angel, and he is offered the opportunity of freedom if he discovers who has murdered Danny, Bryce's ex-roommate. Murdered dead roommate. Is that an ex-roommate? That's kind of morbid. If she dies and it's an ex-room... Huh. Okay, anyways. So Hunt ends up helping Bryce find out who the murderers are. The main reason why I liked this book so much was Bryce, she wasn't like other main characters. She was a party girl. She did drugs, she had fun, she drank, she hung out with a lot of friends. And in most fantasy books that I read, in most books that I read in general, it's the sweet, innocent, nice, kind of sheltered girl, which is very relatable for me personally, but I've just been kind of tired of reading that same archetype, and this one really felt like I was switching it up, and it didn't feel like, well, she was shamed, but I liked how she dealt with the shaming. It was very inspirational. And then Hunt, he was just such a chill dude. Like, he would murder somebody and then cook dinner, watch some Netflix right after, and you're like, okay, you do you, I guess. I do have to say, the first third of the book is a little bit slow. You're getting a lot of info dumping, lots of world building, but it really pays off towards the end. And it's kind of a hockey stick graph if you've taken economics, where you're like slowly, gradually getting to more interesting plot, whatever, and then all of a sudden you go, and you're just like, what just happened? And it's crazy. I legally had to include the next one. Epic book. From Blood and Ash by Jennifer Elle. I'm gonna butcher her last name, but I'm gonna try it. Armentrout. I'll put the name on the screen because I don't wanna offend anyone, but I don't know how to say it. There was so much action, romance, passion, violence. Couldn't put it down. My brain literally was losing it half the book. I was just like, how do I... Betrayal. I forgot betrayal. So we follow Poppy, who is the maiden. That means that she can't really be looked at, touched, interact with until this ceremony called the Ascension occurs. And we don't really know what the Ascension is. It's kind of mentioned over and over again. And then we figure it out later on. But even now, I'm still kind of confused of what the Ascension is. But we just know it's a process to turn regular people into these heightened beings. So she is feeling trapped and isolated, and then Hawk becomes the love interest, becomes a part of her royal guard. The plot twists were so shocking, and this was so steamy. Like, it was just such a steamy book to read. I really liked how strong Poppy's character was, how she defied the rules that were being put on her and tried to go out and help people when she could. And I also really liked Hawk. I mean, Hawk was the ideal book boyfriend. Like, he's any adjective that you would describe your ultimate book boyfriend was in him. He was caring, he was protective, observant, funny, smart, considerate.
Talented, brilliant, incredible, amazing, show-stopping, spectacular.
And just like from the last book, there were a couple info dumps in the beginning. I would just wait a hot minute until Poppy meets Hawk for real, like when they actually meet up and start their things, because that's when the book really picks up. Okay, those were my 6 favorite books. Let me know down below if you have read any of them, if you've liked them, disliked them, and give this video a like, hit the subscribe, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!